In this lesson, we're going to learn about piecewise functions. This is something you have not seen before, and so this will be brand new to you. And if you're looking at problem number 2, I think it appears to be a little bit intimidating when you first look at the notation here, because it's not something you've seen before. The domain and range part we're going to cover on a different day, so we're just going to first learn to graph them. So you can ignore the part under your graphs that says set notation and interval notation. We'll do those tomorrow. For now, we're just going to learn how to graph these functions. So to start, I'm going to look at what this is saying. This says f of x equals x if x is less than 0, 2 if x is greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to break this up into parts. This is what f of x equals first, and I prefer to use the term y instead of f of x. I just like that. It's something I'm used to seeing, and I can replace that if I'd like to help me graph it. So y equals x if x is less than 0, and then if I go with the bottom piece, y equals 2 if x is greater than or equal to 2. So we are going to have two different graphs on the same plane, but we're going to have restrictions on them. So you'll see how that works. I want you to use pencil when you're graphing these. The first line I'm going to graph is y equals x. The first one I can see up here. If I'm graphing that line, I would say that the slope is 1 and the b is 0. So I'm going to start at 0 and move with my slope, up 1, right 1. And you want to put your dots all the way through this graph. I then, after I get all the dots on, I look at the restriction. If x is less than 0. So I go to the x-axis and I look at 0, and I try to find it on where I just graphed. So I'm going to go up and find my dot that's on 0, which will be right here. Since it says x is less than 0, it'd be an open circle. Just as a reminder, less than and greater than are open circles, because they don't include those points. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to are closed circles because they include the points on there. So here I have an open circle, and it says x is less than 0. So on the x-axis, which is right here, which way is less than? It's this way, right? Over here. So I'm going to connect my dots where they go less than. And then I'm going to erase my other dots. So that is my first graph. My second one I'm going to do is y equals 2. Hopefully, we're starting to realize that y equals 2 would be a horizontal line. So I know that y equals 2 would be a line at 2, and it goes across all the way. After I put those dots in, then I can look at the if part. If x is greater than or equal to 0. So again, I go to my x-axis and I look at 0. I'm going to go up and find my dot, my green dot that I just drew. I see it right here. It says greater than or equal to 0. So that's a closed circle. Which way would I go for x to be greater than? X less than this way, greater than that way. So I'm going to connect my dots right here. I erase my other ones, they're not necessary. And I now have a piecewise function. That's how I graph it. And they look strange. I mean, that's not something you're used to seeing. I did again call it a function, so let's check it. Here's my vertical line. I'm going to move across my graph. Am I ever touching 2 points at once? People might say there, but remember that red is an open circle, so it's not actually touching there. So this is a function. Let's try number 3. Same idea. I'm going to first separate out my first two. So y equals 3 if x is less than negative 1. Y equals x plus 1 if x is greater than 1. So my first line I'm going to graph is y equals 3. Well, we just did one like that, right? That was a horizontal line. So I put my dots all the way across. And then I look at the if part. It says if x is less than or equal to, less than negative 1. So on my x-axis here's negative 1. I'm going to go up and find my purple dot. It's less than, so it's going to be an open circle. And which way does x go less than? To the left. So I'm going to connect my dots to the left. Erase all my other dots. and then start on the next one. My next one is y equals x plus 1. So my slope is 1, my b is 1, so I start at 1. Again, if you look here, there's my b. So I start at 1 and I move with my slope. Up 1, right 1, all the way through the graph. Up 1, right 1. Down 1, left 1. Down 1, left 1. Down 1, left 1. So now, when I look at this one, I'm going to look at the if part next. It says if x is greater than 1. So I find 1 on my x-axis. Find my purple dot. It says greater than, so it's an open circle. Now x going greater than is this way, so I connect my dots that direction. And I erase the rest. There's another piecewise function. If you run a vertical line across it, you're never touching 2 points at once. And hopefully you can see how it's just different pieces of a graph. Number 4, I'm going to have you guys set up on your own. I want you to try and just write out the forms separately. So you're looking at this part right here is what I want you to do. And I want you to try to graph them. We will do those in class tomorrow and talk about them. But I want you to attempt them so you get an idea of what you were thinking, and if you were doing something wrong, we can fix that so we'll know what you were thinking.